All right, let's dive right into this explainer. We're going to completely transform how we view social studies in early childhood education. If you think it's just about memorizing facts or maybe celebrating a single holiday once a year, well, get ready to shift your perspective entirely. Today, we are looking at how we cultivate true identity, equity, and global empathy right from the very start. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, I've got a tough but really essential question for you to ask yourself. Think about your current classroom environment. Look at your walls, your books, your play centers. Are you genuinely celebrating the diverse world we live in on a daily basis? Or are you kind of just tokenizing it by pulling out a specific cultural book once a year? To answer that, we're taking an inside-out approach today. We'll start by redefining social studies, then confront our own biases. After that, we'll see how diversity awareness actually develops, design inclusive classrooms, and finish up with the anti-bias audit. Okay, part 1. Redefining social studies, moving beyond static trivia. Because for young kids, this subject is way more than just memorizing history. Look at the stark contrast here. We've got the outdated, old ways, isolating diversity into single, often exoticized theme days. And then we have the new way, which is continuously integrating modern families and global rhythms into everyday learning. We are moving entirely away from that passive approach toward a continuous anti-bias framework. When we talk about teaching culture and diversity in early childhood, specifically looking at the ASCLD indicator SST1C, it's really about helping kids build a secure identity while developing empathy for the uniqueness of others. It actively asks the child to figure out, who am I in our big, diverse world, and how do I honor the differences in others? Which brings us to Section 2, confronting our own biases, the educator's lens. We really can't teach this without looking inward first. Here is the reality check. We have to constantly ask ourselves, when do our center's rules cross the line from institutional compliance into cultural erasure? It's so easy to unintentionally view a family's cultural rearing style as wrong, simply because it's different from what we're used to. To really build empathy around this, think about the Mary Rose scenario from our simulation exercises. It's a perfect example of a teacher caught between a family's home rearing style and the center's strict institutional rules. It really challenges us to shift away from judgment and move toward deep cultural humility, recognizing that our classroom rules are just one way of operating, absolutely not the only right way. Another incredibly powerful tool from our sources is the Rafa system. In this cross-cultural simulation, participants are put into groups with completely opposing communication rules. And it brilliantly illustrates exactly how an English language learner, or really any child from a non-dominant home culture, might feel stepping into a rigid classroom. Suddenly, their totally natural habits are viewed as errors. It's a huge lesson in cultural displacement. Now that our own educator lens is calibrated, let's move to Section 3, how diversity awareness develops, the trajectory of the child. Think of this table as your developmental roadmap. It condenses exactly how kids safely transition from just noticing physical differences as babies to actually celebrating unique cultural assets as older preschoolers. You can see how an infant's sensory tracking evolves into a toddler pointing out features, which then becomes a preschooler describing family traditions and actively noticing when a peer is being treated unfairly. And of course, our adult guidance has to evolve right alongside them. For example, what does social studies actually look like for a 10-month-old? Well, it looks like sensory trait tracking. Infants immediately notice physical differences in skin color, hair texture, and voices. We can actively support this by putting child-safe mirrors backed with high-contrast diverse faces right at floor level. That way, they can neutrally examine features from the very beginning. Then, they grow into toddlers. And toddlers will absolutely point out skin color or hair texture, loudly, right in the middle of circle time. When they do, we must never shush them. Treating physical differences as taboo is a huge mistake. Instead, validate their observations neutrally and factually. Saying something simple like, "Yes, Leo has beautiful dark brown skin and yours is peach," turns a potentially awkward moment into a fantastic standard-aligned learning experience. All right, Section 4, designing inclusive classrooms, translating awareness into the environment. How do we physically build this into our learning centers? It requires continuously integrating living cultures across every single play area. In dramatic play, you need realistic multi-ethnic dolls and diverse food props. Over in art, you've got to have accurate skin tone paints for self-portraits. In the block area, provide figures from different backgrounds. It's really all about validating contemporary, diverse families performing standard, everyday routines everywhere that child looks. A really fantastic, standard-aligned practice you can set up is the same and different trait mapping station.
Just provide some child-safe hand mirrors and accurate skin tone colored pencils, or even clay. This lets the kids collaboratively chart their eye color, hair texture, and skin tones entirely without negative bias. It hits that core developmental indicator perfectly.
And finally, Section 5, the Anti-Bias Audit Actionable Classroom Strategies. Let's make this actionable. I want you to grab the Anti-Bias Material Audit Checklist from your resources and physically overhaul your library and dramatic play areas. Step 1. Remove those historical caricatures. Step 2. Replace them with high-quality, living cultures literature. We want books where multicultural families are just doing everyday things, like going to the grocery store or the park. And Step 3. Swap out those exoticized cultural days for authentic, global rhythms played during your normal daily transitions.
As we wrap up this explainer, I'm going to leave you with something to really reflect on. Cultivating true cultural empathy always starts with the adult in the room. You have the tools, you have the developmental roadmap, and you have the strategies. So, what implicit filters do you need to check before you step into your classroom on Monday morning?